Chapter 4. Relativity of Life. I used to think certain beliefs about how life should be were basically universal, like we all want the same kind of success, or we all prefer the same style of living. Then I started spotting odd disconnects. A friend who loved city lights and endless crowds found my quiet hometown suffocating, while I cherished the same place as an oasis of calm. Another friend adored conflict-heavy debates, insisting it's how you reach real truths. Yet I often saw such exchanges as unnecessary stress. It dawned on me that we might each be standing on a different hill, gazing out at our own horizon, feeling sure we see the only real view. And maybe everyone else is doing the exact same thing from their own vantage. A buddy of mine is absolutely convinced that traveling the world is the only way to feel truly alive. He's baffled by my contentment living in one spot and exploring it deeply. Meanwhile, I'm amused by how exhausted he always looks upon returning from yet another plane ride. But if I'm being honest, I used to judge him, thinking he was just restless or avoiding something at home. He, in turn, found my life narrow. Then one day we actually talked it through, each explaining how we get our energy. Turned out I love creating tight-knit community ties, while he craves ever-changing novelty. Both of us realized we'd formed knee-jerk judgments based on what fueled us personally. Neither perspective was wrong. Each vantage carried its own internal logic. You might think about a time you flat out couldn't understand why someone was so thrilled or horrified by an event you saw differently. Maybe your coworker came in gleeful after taking on 5 extra tasks, and you thought, are they nuts? Meanwhile, they might see those tasks as a stepping stone to growth, while you see them as a recipe for burnout. If we never talk about it, we'll just keep side-eyeing each other in confusion. A quick chat sometimes reveals that each person's viewpoint, shaped by experiences or aspirations, has its own reasonableness. Recognizing this relativity doesn't mean nothing matters, or that we abandon moral ground. It just says, wait, maybe I'm not the only one with a valid angle here. You can hold firm to your ideals, like I can still believe constant travel might tire me out, while noticing another's vantage is equally sincere to them. That shift might help you dial down the frustration or the impulse to label them illogical. Instead, you might say, that's the lens you're looking through. And maybe you find common ground, or at least mutual respect. What about those times we do share a baseline value, like wanting fairness or kindness, but we disagree on how to achieve it? That's where relativity can get tricky. I once got into a heated debate with a friend about how to handle a work conflict. They favored calling it out publicly, believing confrontation sparks honesty, while I wanted a one-on-one talk to keep things calmer. We realized each of us was shaped by different backgrounds. My friend grew up in a large, outspoken family where everything was hashed out collectively, while I was used to a smaller household where direct confrontation felt jarring. We both wanted a fair resolution. We just differed on the best route. The tension eased once we acknowledged that we were each drawing from personal templates. That nod to relativity helped us see neither approach was inherently dumb. They each made sense in the context of who we'd become. Sometimes, though, you bump into a viewpoint that truly clashes with your ethics, like someone defending behavior you find plainly hurtful. Relativity can be a tool here too. Rather than instantly shouting them down, you might ask, why do you see it that way? You might uncover that they prioritize a value or fear you never considered. Doesn't mean you'll agree or back down from your stance if you think real harm is involved. But you might respond with more clarity and less blind anger, and maybe that fosters a better conversation about changes needed. If a compromise can't be found, at least you'll leave knowing you probed deeper than "you're a monster, end of story." It's also funny how relativity plays out in personal growth. We look back at younger versions of ourselves and shake our heads. I can't believe I thought that was the best way. But that was your vantage point then. It doesn't make you foolish. It means you had fewer experiences or different needs. You could reflect on a big choice you made 5 years ago. Maybe it was your dream job at the time, but now it bores you. It served the person you were, not necessarily the person you became. That's the fluid side of relativity. Your vantage can shift as you gather insights, and that's okay. It's not betrayal, it's evolution. One place I see major friction is in group decisions, like a friend group deciding on a vacation spot or a project team at work. If each vantage is rigid, like beach vacations are the only real way to relax, or mountain hikes are the only path to adventure, we clash. But if each side explains why they love their choice, say one grew up near mountains and finds them spiritual, while another only recharges by lazing on a sunny shoreline, we might build an itinerary that includes both a mountain trek and a beach day, or pick a compromise destination with some variety. Relativity approached with curiosity can lead to synergy rather than stalemate. That synergy only arises if we step away from the notion that my vantage is the vantage. I once had a meltdown with a roommate because I couldn't understand why they found my tasteful minimalism so depressing. They said it felt cold and unwelcoming. I was taken aback. Over time, I learned they thrived in vibrant, cluttered spaces full of color. Once we recognized we both had legitimate preferences, we struck a balance. Some corners went minimal, others got their color. A small but telling example. We each let the other's vantage shape part of our living environment, ending up with a space that fit us both better than if one viewpoint dominated. What about moral convictions? Some might argue that if everything is so relative, we can't hold on to absolute values, but in practice, we can keep our moral lines, like kindness, equality, or honesty, and still see that another person might fulfill those lines differently. Maybe you show love by giving unsolicited advice, certain it's helpful, while your friend experiences that as intrusive. The principle of love stands, but the expression differs. If you remain locked in your vantage of, this is just how you express care, you might never realize you're stomping on their sense of autonomy. If they remain locked in, this is meddling, period, they might not see your genuine concern. Relativity suggests each party checks the other's vantage, could lead to a solution, like asking permission before offering advice. Maybe you recall a time you had a blow-up with someone, only to realize later that you were each analyzing the situation through different emotional filters. You might even laugh about it now. I thought you were criticizing me when you asked that question. No, I just truly didn't know what you wanted. A meltdown that could have been avoided with a bit of vantage sharing. It's humbling to think how many arguments arise not from irreconcilable differences, but from a refusal to see that both vantage points might have something valid to offer. Relativity, of course, doesn't always solve big impasses. Sometimes you'll discover that you and another person have vantage points so distant you can't meet in the middle. Maybe you can accept that separation without turning them into an enemy. You recognize we stand on different hills, and that's the final shape of it. This can be less painful than demonizing each other, because you've acknowledged the personal logic behind each stance. The world is big enough for those who prefer the city to the country, confrontation to quiet resolution, or spontaneity to planning, as long as we don't harm each other in the process. But stepping into that acceptance requires a certain humility, to consider your vantage precious, but not the ultimate. In return, you earn the freedom to explore fresh angles without feeling traitorous to your old beliefs. That can keep life interesting. You might discover new passions or see sides of a relationship you once missed. It can also lower your guard, letting you connect with people who seem, at first glance, like they inhabit a different universe. Often, we share more ground than we realize, just approached from different directions. If any of this resonates, maybe think of a current tension. Is there a friend or coworker whose approach to life just baffles you? What if you asked how they arrived at that mindset, or considered how their upbringing shaped them? Would it diffuse your frustration? Might it reveal a partial truth in their approach, something you can adapt? Even if it doesn't turn you into their biggest fan, you might find common respect, or at least calmer dialogue. One final reflection. No vantage is permanent. Sometimes the biggest leaps in personal growth happen when a new perspective sweeps us up. We might resist at first, change is unsettling, but then we see how it broadens our horizon. Accepting that our vantage is one among many can be a stepping stone toward deeper empathy and ongoing evolution. It's less about losing who we are, more about letting ourselves refine or expand our perspective as life unfolds. As you go about your day, consider whether you can invite a bit of relativity into your conversations. Maybe ask yourself, could there be another way to interpret this event or attitude that feels just as real to someone else? Or if you're in a clash, explore what vantage is fueling your stance versus theirs. It doesn't promise easy harmony, but it might open a door to understanding, or at least reduce the friction of calling each other irrational. In a world where so many vantage points coexist, perhaps the real skill is learning to see beyond our own hill, even momentarily, so we can greet others where they stand. And who knows? In that meeting of angles, we might discover a richer view than we had all by ourselves.